welcome to the latest episode of the Scouser and the Scot.
So today we've got someone who I've been following for quite a while now, and there's reasons behind it which we'll divulge in the next 20 minutes when we interview Jack J Hutchinson. How the devil are you, matey, and how are you keeping?
I'm good. I've just actually arrived back from the Lake District, so I've been in this sort of serene environment for the last 3 days, although in my head I was sort of like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, and we climbed up this fucking mountain yesterday and I nearly collapsed, and I was like, you know, the last 18 months of not touring, I think my fitness has just gone to pot. So I was climbing up this fucking mountain, and my girlfriend Liz, she was just straight up there and she was looking back at me, and I felt really pathetic. So it's good to be back in my home environment, surrounded by my guitars, surrounded by my action figures, and you know, I'm a bit happier here than on top of a mountain. So yeah, I'm good.
It makes perfect sense. Are you ready for the next 20 minutes of pain? I mean,
I don't know, man. You said just before we went live that there's a bloopers reel, so that might be more entertaining than the shit I'm going to talk about in the next 20 minutes. So we'll see how we go.
We'll put it on at Christmas anyway, mate, so it doesn't matter. Right, so the first thing first, let's start the clock. There you go. Jack, tell us about how it all started for you then, mate.
Well, what, in terms of like getting into music and that sort of stuff?
Into music, yeah. Come on.
Yeah, I sort of started out, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a visual artist. And it seems like a lot of artists tend to also be musicians. So when I went to art college and I studied in Blackburn, and then, yeah, I just met a lot of like other musicians who were into, you know, the similar sort of music I was into at the time. And I'm talking about like the late 90s where, you know, Britpop had been the big thing. And when Britpop was happening, I was like at home listening to Led Zeppelin and AC/DC and this stuff that at the time was kind of uncool. And yeah, that was how it sort of started in terms of getting into playing guitar. And I went to like classical guitar lessons every Monday, and I fucking hated it. All my mates were out playing footy, and I wanted to do that. I didn't want to be at this fucking classical guitar lesson. And yeah, one of my mates' dads actually turned me on to Led Zeppelin, and that was like, right, I want to learn how to play that. And I actually took this CD to the guitar teacher and said, "Can you teach me how to play Heartbreaker?" And he was like, "I don't like Jimmy Page." I was like, "Mum, I'm not going back." That was the end of that. And I always remember my mum said to him, she said, you know, has Jack learnt enough to you know, carry on and learn on his own and be good enough on his own? And this guitar teacher, he was a bit of a cock actually, and he was like, "No, I don't think so. I don't think he's good enough." So that always stuck with me. And I was only like 12 or 13 at the time. And even to this day, that still stands in my head. And I think, you know, fuck you. I'm going to try my best to prove you wrong. So that's how it all kind of started. Yeah.
I hate that because it's like my other half, she's a teacher. And, you know, I've known plenty of kids be ruined by a teacher with that attitude, telling them they're stupid, telling them back in the day, telling them they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. And it blights people's lives in a lot of ways. But if in your case, it drove you on, obviously, to prove them wrong, which is a good thing. That's not how he meant it to be.
Well, I mean, there might be some other people that say he was right, but I mean, it's kind of, I feel like I've proved him wrong already. But yeah, you shouldn't really act like that. And it's interesting, a couple of nights ago, we had a young lad on stage with us. We played this show over in Reading, and this young lad, George, got up and played with my band. And it was great because, you know, he's 13 years old. He reminds me a lot of me, you know, and he's very, you know, very talented guitar player. And he wasn't fazed at all by getting up on stage, you know. And I suppose at that age, you're not really, you kind of think you are the new Jimmy Page, don't you, when you're 13 or 14 and you can play those licks. And I see my role in that situation to encourage him and make sure that he feels inspired to go on and I mean, whether he feels inspired by me or just thinks that's not the route I want to go. But, you know, I think you've got to be, as a slightly older musician, you got to look out for youngsters coming through really as well, haven't you?
Yeah, you do.
I totally agree with that. It's one thing that, because obviously being in, like, I get managed by John, and one of the things that we've been saying is We need to encourage more young artists to come through, younger fans into the rock scene and stuff like that. And I think, to be honest, it's a dying breed, but it's up to us to encourage young people to get into this music, because it's amazing. It's one of the best feelings out there. And unfortunately, John, as you know what it's like to try and get a venue that'll let younger people into these things to experience it. And there's a lot of good festivals out there who do encourage young people to come along. So
we saw it on Sunday, didn't we, mate? We were at Rockweech, and there was these kids. I mean, they looked about 4 and 2 or something like that, 5 and 3, and the cut downs on with the band packs. They were cool as anything. They weren't phased by being with the musicians. When musicians were leaning over the barrier and handing them plectrums and then meeting them after, it was just absolutely fantastic to see. But the problem we've got, Jack, is that at our age, I mean, you're a lot younger than me. You and Ian's probably about similar ages, but we still were able to see what rock musicians looked like on TV. You know, we were able to see them. We were able to be exposed to that. Kids nowadays, I've got a 15-year-old daughter. The only way she's exposed to it is if she happens to go past my office and see me playing something, or, you know, it's all TikTok and crap like that. So now, really, the trick is our audience is literally dying out. It's reaching out to that next generation rock fan, and we're going to have to do it their way. I mean, what do you think of that? I think you're the type of guy that already thinks all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when I was sort of 9, 10, 11, I remember watching Guns N' Roses on, you know, MTV. This is back in the day when MTV used to play rock music, and I remember really specifically seeing the video for You Could Be Mine, which had obviously Schwarzenegger in it because it's from the Terminator 2 soundtrack. And I just saw Slash in that video and was like, my God, that's just incredible. And, you know, I became obsessed with Les Pauls. I was a big Les Paul fan when I was a teenager, but it sort of infiltrated my mind because I was exposed to it via television. And there is something to be said about, if you see it presented on a platform like MTV in whatever year that would have been, sort of early 90s, you assume that has been like quality controlled, and there's a sort of acceptance that has been selected as good quality music. And when you're sort of 11, 12, I don't know, that just really struck me, and that sort of thing isn't every day for youngsters now. So they access things obviously via YouTube and Vimeo and other platforms like that. And so I think the challenge has been really for a lot of musicians to kind of adapt to those platforms, particularly over the last 18 months when we've had to all shift online because of the pandemic. There's a lot of musicians I know that are great at all that sort of stuff, but then other people that, you know, they've never seen having any engagement with digital platforms as being important. And they might have PR teams that handle all that stuff and they've never had to engage with it. So everyone's kind of had to get their head around it. But if you can kind of crack that, I think that is a way of engaging those younger people. You know, I use stuff like Instagram and obviously Facebook and Twitter and that sort of thing. I don't know. It seems to have engaged youngsters, but the key is then getting them to come out to the shows, isn't it? I think that when I go out and do, you know, I did a tour just before the pandemic, and it's cool. Like, a lot of my audience tends to be slightly older, particularly in this country. When we go abroad, we did a tour of Brazil in 2019. There's a lot of young people at those gigs, particularly young women. You know, young women wearing AC/DC t-shirts, and that music is really fucking big in Brazil with a younger audience. And we haven't quite seen that just yet. And as you say, unfortunately, we're all mortal, and eventually that older generation are going to die out. So we need to work out a way of ensnaring the youngsters to come to the rock shows.
I think the thing is that what we try to do is I think we're guilty in the rock and metal scene of waiting on the youngsters waking up and discovering how great our music is. But the problem is that it won't happen because they don't look at and they don't use the platforms that we do. So, for example, you talked about social media, where if you're under 20, it's all TikTok and Twitch. So, and you have to do it in a way that gets them involved. And they aren't going to suddenly wake up and go, I want to go to a rock concert the way it was done in 1972. You know, we're going to have to look at it much more in depth than that, because if you don't present it to them in a fashion that they understand, I think that's the problem. You know, we're expecting them to come into a club and just stand there and love it the way that me at a 60-year-old does. You know what I mean? It can happen, but I think we need to be smarter than that, being honest with you. So when you've toured Brazil, what was that like, mate? Logistically?
It was fucking nuts. There was a lot of traveling, and you know, by the end of that, I was absolutely fried in terms of like the traveling, and you know, I think we went over there, and I didn't really have any expectations for what it would be like. I thought, you know, it'd be cool to go to Brazil, obviously. But, you know, to be honest, if there's 5 people at the gigs, I don't really give a shit. I'm in South America. But the gigs were packed. And we did one gig where, like, we were the headliner of this festival. Fuck knows why we were the headliner, but we were. And we drove up in this van. We had a van. I don't even have a fucking van in the UK, but anyway, we had a van. And there's this, like, I'm not kidding, it's like a 30-foot high, like, billboard of my fucking face. And, you know, and I was like this to the lads, like, do they think I'm bigger than I am? Do they think I'm like Bono or something? And we got out of the van, and there were these, like, 3 Brazilian lads who were singing my track Justified at me, like, really, like, fucking going for it. And I was like, I don't even get that in the UK. What's going on? But what was brilliant about it was because, you know, I'm not going to lie. Like, I thought at the end of that night, I thought I was a fucking rock god. Like, they did a meet and greet, and there was a queue went round the corner to have photos with me and stuff. So we flew back to the UK, and I got on that flight thinking, you know what? I have fucking made it. And it was great. But then we were booked to play a festival in Sittingbourne, like maybe 3 days later. So I was jet lagged to fuck. And it was great. I got on stage, started Justified. And a woman right at the front went like this. And she put fingers in her ears. And she spent the whole fucking set like this. And we walked off stage, and I was like, do you know what? That sort of brought me back down to earth a little bit there. So the ego that was sort of there after Brazil had completely been shattered. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we were supposed to go back last year, but obviously we didn't because of the pandemic. But we're supposed to be going back next September, which would be really cool.
That's pretty cool, mate. So you said before about Slash being your idol, and, like, you know, one of your idols growing up. You got into Les Pauls and stuff like that. You and me have got a very similar guitar taste, which is quite strange. You're most probably one of the only guys I know in the UK who play the Wild Audio.
These lovely understated guitars.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan. I've got 2 myself, and I'll show them after. But how did you get into Wild Audio?
Well, I was looking for the sort of guitar that, you know, somebody like Nick Drake would play, and I'm only joking. It was well, I've been a massive fan of Zakk Wylde for a long time, and yeah, when I was a teenager, I was really mad into, you know, Black Sabbath, and then Ozzy, and I actually probably listened to more of Ozzy's solo stuff when I was a teenager than I did Sabbath. And I, you know, obviously massive Sabbath fan, but I was really into Randy Rhoads, and, you know, spent a long time trying to copy Randy Rhoads' techniques. But obviously Randy Rhoads had, you know, passed away. And so one of the first shows I went to was, I went to Ozfest at Donington, where Zakk played, and he opened the day, actually. Black Label Society opened the day, and then he was back on later, you know, 10 hours later with Ozzy. And yeah, it was an incredible experience, that, and it's still up there for me as one of the best gigs I've ever seen. And to see Zakk live, it just really inspired me in terms of the guitar playing, obviously, but the performative element and the energy he puts into a gig, and that's really stayed with me. That, you know, you can't go out and do 2 songs and be badass on your first 2 songs. You've got to hold it together for 90 minutes. Unlike, you know, when I was collapsing on a mountain yesterday. I need to go back and watch the Zakk videos, I think.
Oh, it makes perfect sense, mate. Trust me. Yeah, Zakk is absolutely legendary. absolute top bloke as well. It is someone that we need to get on, John. You know what I mean? But,
well, your mates with him. I've seen the video. I've seen the video of you with him, so you fucking get him on. It's your fault. It's not my fault.
you'll have to check that one out. Seriously, Jack. It's a whopper.
Oh yeah, it's funny. How Ian and his wife went to see him, and he bought a guitar off him, and they got a meet and greet. But he had him. He actually managed to get Zach to talk about
do one of his stuff videos,
EP and everything. It's really cool.
Oh, wicked, man!
Mate, yeah. I'll tell you about it after this, mate. It's funny. It's brutal, like, but it is. It was just quality. Down in.
Well, he's a great guy, isn't he? I think that's.
Just, do you know what? He's down to earth, and I think that's one of the cool things. When you actually meet him, he is just so down to earth. He's as crazy as his videos on YouTube, on his page. He is just up for a laugh all the time, and that's off to him, because we need more people like Zach in the music industry, because it just keeps us all in check with the rock and roll history.
I think he's obviously got that lineage there where he's sort of, you know, he's been there and done that. He obviously started playing with Ozzy when he was like 19.
Yeah,
and I think what you see with somebody like that as well, and it you know, they sometimes say, like, don't meet your heroes, but I remember meeting Jimmy Page a few years ago, and he was so cool. And you know, sometimes you come across musicians that are sort of, you know, lower down the food chain, and they act like they're the fucking John Lennon or whatever, and it's like.
Exactly. But 1 minute, Jack. It's the 5-minute warning. We've got 5 minutes left. So let's talk about your tour, which is happening in October, mate, and your new single, which is coming out.
Yeah, we've got a new single, which is called Call of the Wild. Handily placed just off camera.
That was very nicely
shamelessly fucking promote it. I almost accidentally picked up the new AC/DC album, but they don't need me to. They don't need me to promote that. But yeah, this has just come out, and it's presented on this lovely half and half vinyl.
Do you know what, mate? I've seen your vinyl, and it is fucking ace, mate. It is absolutely quality. I love the blood red one. What you did, which you was giving away this week.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's the visual artist in me a bit, where everything has to look really cool, and it's not enough for me to just bung it out on any old like digipack or whatever. The artwork is really important, and the guy who's done the artwork for this track, he works for Blasco from Ozzy's band, so he does all of Blasco's podcast designs and things. So that's why I asked him to do it, because I got into Blasco obviously through Zach, and I was like, I want something that's a bit more doom rock, and he was really cool actually. Anastasia, so usually when you contact people, they're a bit like, yeah, of course I'll do that, give me some money. He was like, I need to listen to your music first. And I was like, okay, that's good. And he listened to my music and said, yeah, I can work with this. And I thought, right, he's a proper artist, he's not doing it for a quick buck. So that's the first thing. Prior to the tour, which is kicking off in October, we're doing 17 dates around the UK. Loads of great shows, that some of which were postponed from 2020 due to the pandemic, and then some new ones added in. So it'd be great to be on tour, and doing 17 dates is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah,
you're doing EBGBs in Liverpool, and the Waterloo in Blackpool, so I'll try and get down.
Oh, that's cool.
And have a beer.
Yeah, we'll come to them ones. EBGBs.
I've heard some great things about, particularly the Waterloo in Blackpool, and there's a lot of bands like you see, like Massive Wagons, and obviously guys like that have played it. And I've been trying to get a gig there for quite some time, so it'll mean a lot to actually perform there.
Do you know what? We played it. It was a couple
June, 13th of June.
13th of June. Absolutely amazing.
It's
a great place, mate.
And even the way it's set, it's like a museum. It's like going into a rock and roll museum as well. And like the Lemmy, honestly, it's one of the few venues that actually sells its own merchandise about itself. It's that cool.
Yeah,
it's you'll love it.
Who knows, man? There might be a Zach Wild audio invasion on that night. You have to bring your guitars down, and we can do some sort of dual guitar shit. That'd be good.
Oh, fun. Mate, do you know what? I might hold you to that. I might hold you to that. We will chat offline and we'll have a discussion.
Yeah, man, let's sort it out.
I'd love to, mate. I'd love to. Obviously, I know we're playing same festivals next year, so we'll definitely try and do something with that as well if you want, like, and we'll box it all up. So, last question, because obviously we're running short on time and stuff like that. If people haven't seen you before, tell us what their experience and what are they going to see when they come to the show.
Well, I think it's a good old rock and roll show. I mean, I think we hark back to that cold kind of golden period. All the bands that I love, like AC/DC, Zeppelin, the Stones, that sort of stuff. You get elements of that. We've changed our set a lot over the last 2 years and made it more of a sort of full-on rock show. There were too many ballads previously, so the tour is going to be pretty much the whole of the new album, The Hammer Falls, which is heavy as fuck. So hopefully people are going to love that. And expect lots of guitar solos. You know, I spent a fortune on these Zakk Wylde guitars that I've got to put them to good use on the tour. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to let rip with those.
I hope you've got a load of pyro as well, because it ain't going to look right unless you get a shit ton of pyro as well, mate.
Look, man, I know we were short of time here, but I was at Stone Dead the other day, and it was my mate Chris Barris, he shot one of the music videos for the new album, and his guitarist Josiah has done the mixing on my new album. They had some pyros at the front of the fucking stage, and they went up, and Chris was like, he sort of jolted back, and I was thinking, well, actually, I turned around to my mate and I said, I tell you what, if that was me with all of this, that would have been the end of me. It just gone up, you know, herbal essences, leave-in conditioner, flammable as fuck. Jack is a goner.
Even Michael Jackson, remember that happened to him something. His hair went.
I think he just melted, mate. So, guys,
next tour it might be just like that, you know, it's all gone.
So there you have 20 minutes, Jack. That was ace, man. We'd love to have you back on if you'd be up for it, and we can.
Yeah, man. I don't know how many times I swore. It's probably maybe 5 or 6 times. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not full on Scouser Scottish yet, mate. That's
we'll have to next time you come on, we'll get Brother Coop on, and he can show you how it's done with his I think his 120 F-bombs in the space of a minute. But yeah, we nearly got there. It was good, man. So one last question. Obviously we've gone past the 20 minutes, but if anyone wants to check you out, give us your links. How do people get in touch with you, Jack?
They can go to jackjhutchinsonmusic.com, which is my official website, which has got all the tour dates, the merch links, that sort of stuff. And then obviously you can find me on Twitter, Facebook. I need to join TikTok and sort that out. I need to get down with the kids. But if you just type in Jack J Hutchinson, it will come up, YouTube, all that sort of stuff, and they'll find me there.
What I'll do for you, buddy, is I'll put all the links down below. So, guys, if you are watching this and you think, I want to see what Jack's on about, I want to see all his wild audios, click on the links below, check him out. He's a top bloke. He's a really amazing musician as well. Definitely worth tuning into. I'm looking forward to hopefully even sharing the stage with this guy very soon. So stay tuned. It's going to be epic. And John, over to you, mate.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed talking to Jack. And until next time, you know what to do. Hit that cowbell and subscribe.